Hello everyone. I was just approved by the organizers to offer 1,000 ETH for everyone who's coming. That's absolutely true. And so if you want 1,000 ETH, please join us sitting here. Please, I got some attention and helps. All right. I've been asked to talk about kind of the lessons I've learned in my journey towards the last really 10 years in the crypto space, in the blockchain space, and kind of share a few lessons from my journey that might serve others. A bit about me: I've been in the crypto space for 10 years, since 2013. I did a bunch of different things. I started out contributing code to Bitcoin and Ethereum. I've built a company, sold a company, raised money, and went through several bear markets. This is the fourth, hopefully at the end of it. And basically a crypto dinosaur by this time. And so I'll jump right through to my first lesson, which is very much an Israeli thing, which is, a tale of chutzpah. Have some chutzpah. Chutzpah, anyone knows what it is? Perfect. So chutzpah is a Hebrew word for basically daring to do something. And you really need some chutzpah when you start out in the crypto space. Back then for sure, and now it's even more so. And my journey really started with a bit of chutzpah, but it started in kind of a weird way because in 2012, towards the end of 2012, I actually worked in a startup in Rome, Italy, from all places. And then it was a kind of co-working space, and there was one guy in the office that everyone laughed at. He was always talking about Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, decentralization, throwing terms around. And for the most part, people didn't really notice. Nobody really cared. And that's saying it politely, for the most part, people laughed. But it got to me. Ultimately, I said, okay, I want to learn what this Bitcoin thing is all about. And so, being the developer I opened up the Satoshi white paper, read it through, understood completely 0% out of it, and jumped right into the code. I've decided at that point I didn't understand the white paper at all, and so I decided to save Bitcoin and contribute code, because if I don't do that, nobody will, right? And so with a bit of chutzpah and a year and a half of development experience, all in all under my belt, I decided to try it out. I did a few pull requests. Pull requests is basically how you merge and contribute code to open source projects. And I actually made it. I actually contributed code to the version 0.10, I think, of Bitcoin Core, which is the original Bitcoin project that everything was built on. It really taught me a few things. One is, you can always reduce very great complexity into small problems. I tried to solve a very small problem, not taking credit. I didn't help Bitcoin at all, but I did a small part, and it made a difference. It made some value to somebody. And with a bit of chutzpah, I made my first steps, and that was really, really important because it got me my first networking relationships. It got me my first dip into the crypto space. And so my first lesson is really a tale of chutzpah. Try it out, especially today when you have 1,000 different open source projects within the crypto space. It's extremely important to dip your toes as soon as possible. Don't be afraid too much. Even if you're not the smartest person in the room, there's always something to do. And you never know what these kind of first steps will lead to. And in my case, a bit of chutzpah in getting my PR merge into Bitcoin. The next logical thing was to solve the entire wallet problem within the crypto space, obviously. So by then I had 1 year and 8 months of development experience under my belt, and so that was very logical. And so what you see here is actually the first Ethereum Bitcoins, the first Ethereum Bitcoin wallets and how are they managed. This is an actual Ethereum Bitcoin wallet. Bitcoin wallet, not Ethereum wallet. It doesn't have anything in it. I took it from Google. Don't try it out. Or try it out. Maybe there's $1 million in it. Who knows? But this was the state of the art back then. And so with a bit of experience, I kind of saw a problem and I tried to solve it. And so at that point, there were no hardware wallets, there was no mnemonic wallet, there was nothing. Literally, people printed out their private keys, which is the worst thing you can do. But it was a problem, it was a big problem, and I tried to solve it. And having that bit of experience with contributed code to Bitcoin, that brought me to the second thing I did in Bitcoin, in the crypto space in general. And the second lesson, which is how I really lost to Ledger and Trezor. And that's an absolute true story. Back then, there were a bunch of different companies trying out to solve the wallet problem in the crypto space. And there was several different tracks to do that. Obviously, you know Ledger and Trezor and all of the hardware wallets today, but it wasn't that obvious that this will actually win, because there was nothing back then. And so I tried it out. They tried their solution. I tried my solution. My solution was to partner with a guy called Chris Passia, was an American guy who basically developed the first multi-sig wallet for Bitcoin, where on the one hand, you'll have your computer, on the other hand, you'll have your mobile device. Those two need to both sign any transaction. And so if one of them gets compromised, your Bitcoins are not lost. You know, if you go back to this Bitcoin wallet, it was 1,000 times better. But it still wasn't as good as the hardware wallets. And we tried it out. We understood the problem, but we didn't understand the solution. The solution was completely different. The problem was the same, solution completely different. And that's really how I lost for Ledger and Trezor, because they made a much better solution. So the lesson I took from that is, and it applies to any tech company or in general any solution you try to make. Half of the problem is understanding the issue for sure, but the second half is actually understanding the solution. And in my case, kind of the analogy is that, you know, I was on a racetrack with Ledger and Trezor. The problem, I was riding a camel and they were driving an F1 car. And although we were on the same track, we weren't really competing at all. They were moon rocketing, and we were fumbling about with a technology which was really not something people wanted to use. And so even if you're at the first tries of a new problem, you need to understand the solution. So that's kind of my second lesson. That was back in 2014. And obviously the third lesson is you cannot avoid really, including myself, experts that don't really know a lot, or they try to predict things but they can't really make it through. And my story with it was back in 2014, was this young guy who talked about the world computer. His name was Vitalik, and he invented Ethereum. And it looks pretty obvious today that Ethereum is here to stay. It is the smart contract platform. But it wasn't the case in 2014. In 2014, for the most part, all of the experts said, one, a Turing-complete blockchain would not work, it's too vulnerable. The more extreme people said it was an outright scam, which for the most part people thought of, or at least the Bitcoin maximalist thought of until a year or two ago. And if I heard and kind of followed their advice, I would never have touched Ethereum. Because for the most part, anyone who was around those experts didn't touch Ethereum for a very, very long time, because all of the experts said Ethereum is junk. Almost all of them. And fun fact, most of those experts are no longer in this industry. I would say 99% of them. Because they were dead wrong. They saw the world differently than it was. But if you didn't listen to them and you went with your conviction, then you could have seen the world's most amazing technology come to be. And that's exactly what I saw. I didn't listen to them. And not only I didn't listen to them, I basically replayed what I did with Bitcoin. So in 2014, August 2014, I had a really great job in an Israeli startup. I left and but flew to Germany for a few weeks to work on Ethereum J. Ethereum J is a Java version of Ethereum. That was August 2014. Just to put it in perspective, Ethereum ICO was a month prior. Okay, this was really early days of Ethereum. And being the developer I was and still am, obviously I didn't have any Bitcoin at that point. I didn't participate in the ICO for Ethereum, so I did all of the right moves. And so the next logical thing was, I need to put some work and code into the Ethereum J project because that's how I get my start. And so what you see here, I don't know if it's visible or not. This is the actual commit I did back in August 2014 to Ethereum J. Unfortunately, this project doesn't exist anymore. But it was one of the, I think, 3 or 4 leading Ethereum clients back then. And the same I did with Bitcoin, I did with Ethereum. I dipped my toes, had a bit of chutzpah, and tried to commit some code to understand the technology better. And it really worked. I got my first networking out of it. I got my first understanding of what an EVM is and what it's capable of. And so I didn't listen to the experts, and I went with my conviction. And that really panned out and kind of led me for the next few years, building different things, participating in Ethereum, and kind of going to the biggest high and low of the crypto space by that time, but also I think until today, which is 2017. Who was here in 2017 in the crypto space? Great, all of you to the SEC. So 2017 was a huge milestone in the industry. And when I'm saying huge, it was much bigger than huge. It was the thing that shaped out crypto for probably the next 10 years. It was the highest and the lowest points in the crypto space. The entire year was full of lessons to be learned. But I think everyone needs to experience such a year in their life because you see a few things. So one, you see really the human condition its kind of most transparent way. You see the extremes of people for good and for the bad. But you see also how technology can move so fast that any prediction you had before is irrelevant. Because things under the right circumstance can blow up, again, for the good and for the bad, but very, very rapidly. And so by then, and we passed a few milestones along the way, but by then, it was not just about the brightest people and the great technology. All of a sudden, it got introduced and injected a huge amount of cash into the industry. And that huge amount of cash did a few things. One is, it made everyone look amazing and the best traders in 5 minutes. Everyone became Warren Buffett within a month. And obviously that wasn't great, but it was amazing to see from the outside because by that point I didn't really have any money. But it was amazing to see it from the outside how people quickly adopt a new personality. And it was really great to see because then you can shape your view of the world and try to avoid those types of extremes. It was amazing to see how all of a sudden things that sounded smart were taking traction even though they weren't really smart. They sounded great, but they weren't really. And so the lesson I took from that is, there's a few bunch of lessons, but really what I took is when you're considering kind of the explosion of technology, people, and resources, which in that case was money, that can really shape things up and create a huge amount of value. But you need to have all of those 3 things. You cannot just have one. In 2017, we really had a few people, some technology, and a lot of money. And I think what that shaped up to be and shaped the industry for the later years was that money could do amazing things for the industry, but it has to be directed to the right place. And so 2017 was, for me, probably the biggest point in the crypto history, even though the prices are much lower than what they are today and so on. But it was a pivotal point for everyone. It shaped up the industry for the next 10 years. And so if you had a chance, and again, it's very hard to kind of predict, but if you have a chance to participate in something that violent not in a physical way, but in let's say, the market way, then you should, because that teaches a lot. And if you can survive that, then you're on the right path, right? And so with that 2017 gone and bear markets gone, came and gone, and so on and so forth, building things, building a product, selling a company, raising money, and so on. What I decided to do kind of the past 2 years was really, and that's kind of my last lesson maybe, is you need to build stuff that you believe in. You need to build stuff that you have conviction in, but specifically for the crypto space, and that's very specific for this industry. Projects that give value back most times the project that succeeds the most. And so that's what we did the past 2 years. And the fifth lesson I have is giving back to the industry, and specifically in this case Ethereum, is something that I'm very proud of because I think it also resonates with others. And so what are we doing? So Ethereum, for anyone that doesn't know, moved from proof of work to proof of stake about a year ago. Proof of work being investing a lot of resources to hardware that does computation. Proof of stake means you can cut about 99.9% of those resources and use stake, literally Ethereum token, to secure the Ethereum blockchain. That transition happened about a year ago. That transition had a lot of promise, but that transition also has a lot of challenges. And some of those challenges are around centralization. So when we started getting into the Ethereum ecosystem staking side, we decided that decentralization is really the kind of the secret sauce behind this whole industry. And so we decided to build products that help Ethereum stay decentralized as much as possible. What you see here is really the distribution of stake between different entities within the Ethereum ecosystem. It's not great. There's several entities that control the majority of Ethereum stake currently. And that poses a big threat on Ethereum, on its users as a whole. Not just the users of those services, but everyone who holds Ethereum, because if they get hurt, because they're actually securing Ethereum, you can get hurt as well. And so when we started 2 years ago developing something called distributed validator technology, we had the intention of building a public good that can help Ethereum back. And that really resonates with people. So what is DVT for short for distributed validator technology? DVT does a few things, but DVT really enables decentralizing or distributing the kind of a fundamental component of Ethereum staking, which is the validator, into independent operators. And those operators can work together in order to execute on the behalf of the validator. It does a bunch of different things, from decentralization all the way to layered security, preventing or reducing significantly slashing, client diversity, and all those types of things, which are really crucial to Ethereum. It uses, before that actually, DVT kind of sits within a larger trend within Ethereum right now, which is the expansion of the L1. L1 being Ethereum, and L1, Ethereum specifically, gets expanded to L2s, which are all of the rollups, expanded to MEV Boost specific, which is how do you deal with the transaction market, and now with DVT as well. So you see the expansion of the L1, DVT plays a major role in that. DVT uses two types of technology. One is a consensus protocol, and another is special signatures. Both pretty proven, but put together and kind of focused towards Ethereum staking makes a lot of impact. And really what we're talking about is the transition of Ethereum staking from being this centralized point of failure staking, where a centralized service runs centralized services and servers, needs to manage a lot of validators, and then creates a lot of centralization around stake, towards this DVT future, really DVT network future of a mesh of different operators intertwined with one another to create this robust kind of layer under Ethereum that helps Ethereum staking and helps protect it. And this is kind of the future we are working towards. This is the future and kind of the vision we are hoping we can contribute back to Ethereum. And it's very close to my heart, I think, because of how long I've been in this industry, but also because I got my start in Ethereum. I think with such projects, this is why Ethereum is becoming so successful. Because people really care about its kind of ethos. And that ethos is being the centralized world computer. And that's kind of our little contribution to Ethereum and what it can be. Thank you.
So, I've lost my microphone. Should be there. Any questions for Alon before we move into the surprise question part? All right, I'm coming for you. Don't go anywhere. Wait, Alon. Okay, so you came all the way from Miami. Please present yourself, and what is your question to Alon?
Can I think about the question, or can I think about the first half? Tal Cohen, been in this space since 2017. Question for Alon. The you had a slide about the decentralization or centralization of mining versus validation, right? This one and the next one. So your view is that staking is going to be, or proof of stake is going to be something that solve the problem of centralization of mining.
Not staking alone. I think staking, well, there's a few kinds of staking, but staking on Ethereum has a bunch of challenges. The thing with Ethereum staking is that the technology supports ways, if you do them and implement them, to actually combat that centralization force. Now, it doesn't mean that we'll get to the world where each validator is run by a different entity. I don't think we'll get there. But you could use technology to reduce it significantly. And that's very specific to Ethereum staking. I think there's a long way to go about it. The benefit here, or at least why I'm optimistic, is one, the technology, but also there's very little economies of scale when it comes to Ethereum staking versus huge economies of scale in proof of work. So at least the economics work towards what you're trying to get to. So that's pretty important.
Another question for Alon. Thank you for asking. Okay, I'll ask you a question. I've been going to these conferences with you for 6 years now, right? I guess I officially joined the industry in 2017. Do you find these conferences helpful, bullshit, waste of time, learning experiences, or what is your motivation to keep coming to those? Because you're doing a great job.
I think that it really depends on what you're trying to get, right? So I think for companies, as long as you have a story to tell, there's always new people coming to those conferences. I think that it has become more and more expensive, and that's a big issue. But I think those conferences are it's kind of like pre-COVID and COVID, right? So pre-COVID online, offline, COVID online. So you can't do just one for the rest of your life. You need both. You want to meet people online because it's easy, but you want to meet them face to face, especially if you have a close relationship. That really, really helps. And in general, conferences are also a way to spread the word to people who otherwise don't necessarily know about you, right? So you have a booth, you have people, you're speaking on stage, and some random person can come and kind of link to what you're doing, and it might interest them. So I think in that regard, it's important. Also, what I saw right now is that a lot of those conferences attach hackathons to them, which is awesome. So you have both developers coming in, and you have the opportunity, especially for projects like ours, to kind of connect with them as well. So all in all, I think it's great. I think there's a huge amount of variety in conferences right now. You can be really from the hardcore,
Best conference you would recommend people going to?
Well, other than Building Blocks, of course.
Yes.
I think if you can make it through Denver in 2 weeks, you're.
Who's going to Denver, by the way? Denver. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're chartering a plane paid by SSV Network.
And before that, 1,000 ethers to anyone who comes here from Goldie.
For $5, not Goldie. Okay. So East Denver, definitely. Another one.
Another one would be DevCon. If you can, definitely go there. If you can't make it to DevCon because they're assholes and doesn't give any tickets away, go to DevConnect. If you can't get tickets there, just
go to YouTube.
Industry, I don't know what to tell you.
You have a question? Shit, you're so far. Okay, wait. Almost 40.
Quick question, thanks, great talk. Could you say a few words about the DVT landscape? Who is going to use it? Who is it designed for? It's sort of the competitors that you're facing this year?
Thank you, unbiased person at the world.
Unbiased person getting paid by me?
Yeah. So the landscape is actually becoming really interesting. Again, the past 2 years was really amazing, from education all the way to now seeing integrations with DVD. There's a bunch of different competitors. I won't name them, don't give them any stage at all because we hate them. But kidding aside, I think it's amazing because you see an industry developing, and that competition breeds interest by people. And so there are other competitors. It is a growing industry. There's at least 4 of us right now building DVD technology. And so if you have the time, check it out. And if we do have time, I have a special slide. I don't know if we do have. We don't have.
We don't have, but if you wanted to show it, and in the meantime you show it, see people are standing up for the production. I'm gonna give the last question as you show the slide to someone I met yesterday. Her first name is Alexa, last name is Echo. Echo, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I had a question about actually a previous slide. It was about DBT, specifically diversity. Of course, we all love centralization, diversity in that regard. We love hiring practices, diversity in that regard. But this was about client slashing. Could you expand that bullet point, please?
Yeah, so diversity or decentralization in general, it's a very kind of vague type of term. But I think what we're trying to get to as an industry is diversity on a few factors. So one is the client you're using. Which Ethereum client are you using? Because if that gets any issue, the entire Ethereum goes down. What data centers are you using? If everyone using US North America one, then that goes down. There is no more Ethereum. And so like you can go down the list. With something like DBT, you can practice those different layers of diversity very quickly because of the nature of DBT. Like you can set up a bunch of different clients and they know how to talk with one another very easily. So that's what we meant. Yeah.
Alex, Echo Rivetti from Mint NFT. If you're building a community in Israel, she lives here.